Everybody, thanks for watching. And just a quick reminder that Ancient Religion Series Volume 1 is now available on paganism. Volume 2 will be out soon as well on Zoroastrianism. Definitely take advantage of that. Also, have the sale going on for the 2020 digital downloads for the entire year, just like last year, as well as the Never Pay Again sale, so you don't have to ever pay for digital downloads again. Definitely take advantage of those sales, and you guys should have update emails by now. You're going to be receiving your tracking numbers for those who ordered books and still waiting. So, give it a few days and you guys should be receiving tracking number soon, or receiving email updates, which I'll keep you guys definitely updated on that process. But want to get into this video because, it's a lot been going on since I've put out a video on YouTube. But mainly the biggest thing, of course, has been with Trump, and we have the upcoming election and everything that's going on with Iran. That a lot of people are missing the point of this whole thing and what it's really about. But if you've seen my last few videos on the Bible series, we basically got into this whole thing. We talked about this stuff, what's going on with Iran. So basically, if you understand, Iran. Who is Iran? Iran is basically the remnants of the Persian Empire. So that'll make a lot more sense if you've seen the last Biblical Bible series, because we got into this, and it's not a coincidence that we get into this now around this time. But basically, you have the Persian Empire, or Iran, and the Arabs. And as I explained in the Bible series, how you have the Arabs and the Persians is basically the bastard creation of the Aryan people, who was basically, created and bred to fight their armies for them, fight their wars for them. So as I broke down the genealogy, the genetics of the whole thing, and the history of how they basically bred these people and basically set them to the side and had them ready to go in and conquer areas so they can sit back and say, well, it wasn't us, it was them. And it's the same thing that has been going on, that happened back then, that's going on now. So as I explained in the video, you had the ancient Egyptian empire conquered by the Persians. And I showed you guys and showed you the facts and proof of how the Greeks, before Kemet fell, had deals, had treaties with the Persian Empire. So you have the Greeks that's coming into Kemet and learning, but also, have this inner struggle and war with themselves. But they just so happen to have these treaties and deals going on with the Persian Empire, and then just so happens that Kemet falls to Persia, and then later the Greeks end up with the Egyptian Empire. So we got to look at this and understand what took place back then. It's the same thing that's taking place right now with the whole Iran thing. So you had later on, what happened is they stabbed the Persians in the back, and that led to the almost 700-year-long war that ended in the status quo antebellum, I always talk about, between the Persians, the Arabs, and Rome. So as I explained, in the series, while you had the Persians basically off to the side, trying to figure out their next move, they were already breeding, already training and getting ready the Arabs to go ahead and conquer the Persian Empire, and then go on and give them Islam to basically go on ahead and conquer into African lands and basically do their bidding. And that's exactly what happened. So Persia fell, and you had the whole rise of the Arab world, and the remnants of that Persian Empire is what we know today as Iran. This is why we look and we see America go and conquering up everywhere else, but Iran has been one of those territories, one of those nations and countries that has set aside by itself and has not done anything. They've been to themselves because they know history. So it's not a coincidence, as I said as well, how you have the Saudis, the Arabs, Saudi Arabia, where the Arabs come from, have a whole kingdom with a royal family and so on and so forth. Not a coincidence. So you have all this, and you have America basically conquering and doing what they do, taking up the lands around Iran and so on and so forth, causing all these wars. And what would happen back in, let's say, 1914, I believe it was, you have, Iran basically say, we don't have much, poor nation, but we have this black stuff that's coming out of the ground, that's what we got. We got a lot of that. And, the British people say, okay, well, we can help you out with this stuff. So the Iranians, they didn't have any clue about oil, let alone how to basically harvest it and get it out to market and sell it to people and consumers and so on and so forth. So Britain is basically like, we're going to be doing all the work. We got all the equipment, we got the know-how, we got the customers and clients and so on and so forth. So we have to take 51% of this profits in order for us to do this to help your country basically out of poverty. And some idiot said basically, okay, this is what we'll do. So you have in 1914 the Anglo-Persian Oil Company basically formed, and you had, because of this, them being able to grow the economy, create jobs, and so on and so forth. Until you had later on in the 50s, you had Mossab Deek come in to be the prime minister and basically want to nationalize the oil, because you have this country, Britain, taking majority of the profits, and it's your country, and it should be more profits going to the people starving, it's corruption, and so on and so forth. So Mossab Deek basically comes in as prime minister, and he's trying to nationalize the whole thing. And of course, Britain comes in and they like, well, you guys can't do this. This is not going to happen. So they basically get together with the CIA. You have MI6, which is like the British Secret Service or the British CIA. Yeah, MI6 and the CIA come together with the grandson of Teddy Roosevelt, or Theodore Roosevelt, who was Kermit Roosevelt. And Kermit Roosevelt is a CIA agent who basically goes into Iran and sets up this whole coup to basically get rid of the Prime Minister Mossab Deek, who basically is there and almost is very close to getting the British out of there. So it basically goes bad. It doesn't work out the way it's supposed to work out. A lot of you guys probably know the story. And what happens is they send a wire to Kermit Roosevelt to tell him to basically, flee, run for your life, get out of there. It's not going to work. But he's been there too long, and he understands what's going on. And he has an ace up his sleeve to basically get the whole thing set off for the coup. So takes some money, he starts bribing people, and he basically sets this whole rumor about that Mossab is basically trying to overthrow the throne and take over the whole thing, and they basically run him out, and he's exiled into hiding later on. So you have that whole thing take place, and you have them basically reinstall different leadership that they can control to basically garner control of the petroleum, the oil. So early in the game, you have this whole controversy, and this was basically thought of as fairy tale story for a long time, until the CIA actually came out later on and released the actual documents and proof that this actually happened, and it's public record today where this happened. So it says here, Persian soldiers chased rioters during civil unrest in Tehran, August 1953. On August 19, 1953, democratically elected Iranian Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh was overthrown in a coup orchestrated by the CIA and British intelligence. After having nationalized the oil industry, the Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was reinstalled in the primary position of power. Massive protests broke out across the nation, leaving among 300 dead, which is crazy, and firefights in the streets of Tehran. And anytime you see it, read like that, where you have people, they remove somebody and the people are rebelling, that tells you it's something up. Because if you get rid of an evil or bad dictator or somebody who's running the country poorly, the people are not going to fight for him. So the fact that you had 300 people die for this dude and his rioters and so on and so forth means that they didn't want this guy removed. But the same thing they did, they would do later on with Gaddafi, basically hire people and pay people to, destroy their own country. And that's the power of money. They've been using it against us. We destroyed each other because of money. They destroyed each other because of money. And they got these people to buy into the bullshit and basically sabotage their own country for a couple of hours. So the whole CIA, British intelligence coup, was called Operation Ajax, that the grandson of Theodore Roosevelt, basically was behind, and it was on the ground. Stories about him hiding in the back of cars, driving into the castle, and so on and so forth. It's a whole James Bond type deal when you start to read the whole thing. But the reason why, he basically wanted to nationalize the oil in Iran besides obvious reasons, of course, is that we're talking around, just the end of World War II. And as I explained before in previous videos, World War II was the new world order for Europe right there. Before World War II, you had everybody broken up in different countries. Now, me having to do with citizenship, understanding how Europe works. I got my residency and so on and so forth in Sweden. But because, once you get your residency in Sweden, once you become a Swedish citizen or a citizen of the Schengen area, you can live anywhere in Europe. And this is basically because of what happened in World War II, and them basically coming together and saying, well, we can never allow something like this to happen. Let's get this agreement together. Let's basically unite. And something like this will never happen again. So much death and destruction and people dying in war. We can't let this happen again. Let's just come together. And then now you have that, people from Europe and certain countries that's in the Schengen agreement can live in different countries. So if you are citizen of Sweden, you can go and live in Germany or Amsterdam and other places that's in agreement. So he looked at this in Iran and they said, well, they basically taking over everything and they splitting up everything. So I want to get my piece, and that was one of the reasons why he basically wanted to break free with British, who was basically raping them for the resources, and then they began to find out other resources was there as well that they was trying to take. But anyway, eventually Iran would have to play ball with the whole system because they were in, and this is what they are doing, and this is how this whole thing works. A lot of people don't understand this. You have with GATT was the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. So what they could do back then was basically blackball you from getting imports and exports. So if a country wasn't acting right, you got to think about it. Everybody who's in this agreement with GATT, somebody is controlling the whole thing. So they can go to everybody and be like, well, we're going to basically cut these people out because they ain't playing ball. Especially if all the countries that's involved that you're trading with is your ally. So you can basically say, we're going to cut this country out, we're going to put sanctions on them, and we're not going to allow them to do such and such things as involving trade, importing and exporting. Now, you got to understand this. So we're talking about on a huge scale. This is a country we're talking about. So you think about your own business, a store. Now imagine if you have a supermarket and they basically say, well, we're not going to allow you to have certain produce or certain dairy products and so on and so forth. I mean, how are you going to run your supermarket? Eventually, you're going to go bankrupt, and that's going to be it. People are going to go hungry, and that'll be the end of that. So same thing with a country. When you have people put sanctions on you, and you're not able to get as much as you're supposed to get with trade, and so much taxes on things you got coming in, and it's tough. So with these sanctions, Iran had to play ball, and they've been playing ball, for years, basically like, okay, we're going to make this do what it do without giving in to, this whole new world order thing and so on and so forth. So this is what Iran has been doing for a minute. But we know we had in 1995, the World Trade Organization replaced GATT. You had about 120 something countries involved with that whole thing. And again, you got to look at who is controlling this. Who is the people that is behind the whole thing? They met in Geneva to come together and basically say, okay, well, we're going to have this whole World Trade Organization, and we're going to come up with these different rules and everything on world trade. And all of this is important. It's leading up to what's going on today, giving you history of, our problems with Iran and why Iran would have a problem with us. But it's old, of course. And also, of course, whoever controls, the whole World Trade Organization controls the country's GDP. So gross domestic product. So I can control what your country is going to import and export, and what kind of money you're going to get for your exports, and what kind of taxes or tariffs that's going to be placed on anything you bringing in or putting out, plain and simple. And tariffs is basically a tax on a certain amount of goods that's coming in or leaving your country. So I mean, when you control this, you regulate an entire country. So you got to look at the genius of what they've done. A lot of people don't get it. We look at this stuff on different levels. I mean, your level may be your job and a couple dollars that you're making, but these people are running this global scheme, and they've been using different things for different time frames to control the people. With religion, one, then you had slavery, two, and then now this was just trade. So whoever is locked down on trade and running this thing can control countries, and this is what these people have been doing, for a long time, and just blocking countries out and basically making them, third world countries because they control importing and exporting. Again, you have to think, if I'm a country like Africa, if I'm a continent like Africa, and I have so many different countries producing so much, right? And we're going to get into this in a second, why Africa is important. We know the resources, but it's more than that. How am I poor in any kind of way? How am I poor? But if you are controlling and regulating the system, the networks of how a country can import and export and trade with other countries, then you control that country. You control that continent. Think about that. So it's like, I'm not letting you go to the store. I'm not letting you buy that from the store. I'm not letting nobody spend money with you. So if you can control that, you can control how a country grows. And if you control the leaders, you control everything. So this is what these people have effectively done and have been doing for a long time. And you had countries fighting back, but eventually we see them fall like dominoes after a while to where, they give in. You had Gaddafi fighting. You had other countries fight. And if you think about it, you don't need another country. You don't. If you content with staying with your people, you have soil, you have land, it's fertile. You can come up with some kind of agreement amongst the people, and we're talking about entire country. You don't need any outside anything, But then you have, disasters happen when people think like that. So if you're Haiti, and you say, well, we don't need the rest of the world. We don't need any aid. In Puerto Rico, we don't need any aid. We don't need anybody. We got everything we need right here. Let's just freaking party. Whoever want to come in, come see us, come play. And then you have an earthquake. And then you have a freaking hurricane. And this is how they're getting people today. When you don't want to buy in, you want to just live off the resources of your own country. Okay, so fast forward. You have Obama does the whole deal with Iran. What was that whole thing about? This was basically about controlling supposedly the nuclear weapons with Iran and getting them to agree to basically lower their use of uranium. So basically, if you understand, it's like a certain refinement of uranium gets it to a certain level to where it can become weaponized and used for nuclear war or used to make a nuclear weapon. So they wanted to lower the weaponizing of uranium in Iran to I think like 3%, which is where they can basically use it to, for energy and solar power or whatever they want to use it for. Something minor, but they would have to get it to 90% to have it weaponized and used to make a missile. So apparently Iran was supposed to agree to this, and America was going to release some of the sanctions they had on Iran that was basically crippling the country. If you remember when this came out, they showed the people in Iran, and it was like, celebration. It was like a party in the street because the people were so happy that these sanctions was going to be lifted and the country was going to probably start doing better, and they had high hopes. And, Obama left, Trump came, and Trump basically said, this is bullshit, and it's not no real agreement. It's not nothing that's on paper or something that's kind of legally binding them to agree to these terms. So, he eventually, stepped up and said, no, we're going to basically terminate this whole deal with Iran. And China warned Trump not to do that because it makes America look bad to go back on its word. So, in any case, the deal was Fukushka, done. And, of course, Iran was pissed about the whole thing. So you got to understand, too. And it's a lot, I'm trying to go through this quickly because, it's a lot more to this when you begin to understand, what's been taking place over the last few years involving this, assassination